Hello again, and it's been a while since I've done one of these, but I have another book review for you today on a book I just finished a couple minutes ago. And this particular book isn't, I don't think it's all too well known throughout the literary circles unless you're a die-hard reader of mysteries, of which I am a little. But I thought I may as well enlighten you, viewers who don't happen to be in the know about this particular author. And there are no reviews whatever of his books on YouTube, so this may be the first. So anyway, today's book I want to review for you today is, and you've probably seen this cover before, it's Terror Keep by Edgar Wallace. Now, a brief word on Edgar Wallace. He was an English writer, English mystery writer, who wrote primarily during the 1920s through the 1930s. So he was after Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, and right before Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers and Josephine Day and the like. So, he's right in the golden age of mystery, I suppose. He's one of the forerunners of that. And he wrote, from the period of the 20s and the 30s, over 100 books. I think it was 173 or something. And he wrote over 1,000 short stories and countless plays and such, and so much stuff, really. It's almost hard to track down how much he's written. He's, in the period of 1920, in the 20s alone, one of every 4 books read in England was authored by him, so, he's pretty prolific and such, and he's probably most well known for the creation of King Kong, for which he wrote a draft of the screenplay, and was actually going to be further involved with the production until he sadly passed from pneumonia or leukemia, one of those, in 1932. So, yeah, he's most well known for creating King Kong slightly, but back in like the 20s and 30s is mainly known for writing his mysteries. And this one in particular centers around this detective that he has created. This detective is called J.G. Reader. He's an older man in his like 40s and such, and I suppose what's special about him, other than sporting very prominent side whiskers and very pointless pince-nez, and always wearing a frock coat every place he goes, and carrying an umbrella as well, is that he possesses something called a criminal mind. And I have this book here, The Murder Book of J.G. Reader, which in the UK and every place else in the Commonwealth, but except in America, it's called The Mind of Mr. J.G. Reader. This is a short story collection I read of his. And essentially, he uses this criminal mind, I suppose, to solve his cases and such, and that leads to success and all that type of thing. So, Terror Keep now. He features prominently in this book. And now I'll tell you, I guess, what this book is about. So, it takes place in the English countryside, at this one boarding house called Lamb's Keep, at which there are about 3 occupants, and there's a manager there who is really fastidious and does not at all like having people drop in without a reservation. At this particular institution, Margaret Bellman one of J.G. Reader's chief adherents, and for whom he happens to have a subtle affinity, perhaps maybe even a romantic affinity, takes up a job as a secretary there. And the manager takes her up begrudgingly, but eventually she does, get accepted to this occupation and sees all what's going on in the house and such. In the midst of this, a crazed madman by the name of John Flack, who was a leader of a criminal family who was very prominent in London several years ago, has just escaped from a mental hospital and is perceived to be out on the run, committing various crimes and such, and that the Flack family is very much alive and well and has not been annihilated several years prior. Well, what it all runs down to is that the mystery unfolds, and it has something or other to do with this boarding house, and I'm not going to give the rest of it away. So, and J.G. Reader goes down and investigates all the strange happenings there, and it's all very thrilling and such. So, this book, it's very short, you could see. It's only about 150 pages. Yeah, 156 pages, something like that. Yeah, and he has several books, and they're all about this length. I have another one here, The Law of the Four Just Men, and you can see it's very similar in length. And for somebody who wrote 12 books in the year 1929, that's one book a month. Because, as I mentioned earlier, he signed a contract with Hodder and Stoughton, a London publisher at the time, which is still quite prominent, that he would continue producing for the, I suppose, the principle of entertainment. He signed that contract with them and just wrote rapidly. And very well, too, because this book is very consistently, it's very tightly paced, and it's very, I suppose, narratively, it's, it's not like Pulp Fiction or anything of that nature that back in the day. It's, certainly, from somebody who writes this much, you'd think that, the quality of the book would not necessarily be up to snuff, but really this in itself is something special, I think. So, yeah. Anyway, that was this book review of Terror Keep by Edgar Wallace. I highly recommend this book if you can find it. It may be very hard to find. I know this edition I had to go all the way to Arizona to find and track down. But if you can find it, I believe it would be on like one of those Project Gutenberg websites and such, where you'd find a whole bunch of public domain stuff. But if you can find Terror Keep or anything by Edgar Wallace, I'd recommend him highly as somebody that's a little bit different from Arthur Conan Doyle and Agatha Christie, Dorothy Sayers, and all of those sort of has-been mystery writers, that are sort of, I wouldn't say run-of-the-mill, but sort of, I suppose, of impossible prominence, and he's kind of a sort of a forgotten treasure. So I very much recommend Edgar Wallace, and specifically this book, Terror Keep. And yeah, I guess that's it, and stay tuned next week or whenever, because I don't know, I don't know when it is I'll ever get to finish books, but stay tuned for whenever, when I get to review a book by one of my favorite writers of all time. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. and I give that my highest recommendation.